But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. That was 1 Peter 3:15. Welcome back to another episode of Thinking Well Podcast. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Nick.
Hey, Nick, how are you?
I'm good, Kyle.
This is podcast number 3 from Timberline.
Yep. Thursday night, final night
This
coming
is
up.
it. Yeah, Thursday night. And I want to get right into it. Our guest is the speaker this week, Brother Ergun Caner, Dr. Ergun Caner. How are you, sir?
Doing awesome.
Yeah.
Doing awesome.
It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for stepping up to the challenge and bringing us God's word.
Love it. This is what fills my heart. This keeps me young.
Sure.
Classroom can do, not the classroom, but I'm a dean at a university. Bureaucracy slowly kills me. Like sitting in meetings, I would rather drink Clorox than do that. The classroom keeps me alive, but doing camps, because of my background, because of my testimony, doing camps keeps you young. I've been doing these things it'll be 40 years soon. And the challenge of doing them, and if you're invited back, not repeating yourself, and staying on theme, it forces you. And it forces you to speak in a language that kids get. So,
Yeah, well, it's different than really any other setting.
it really is. College is different than high school, middle school, because high school, middle school, they have to be there.
Right.
They're required by the state to put in 181 a year, right? They don't want to be there. College is different. I have the greatest, easiest job because the challenge is those kids want to be there.
Yeah.
They paid,
Yeah.
to be there. And because of that, they have a goal to finish a major and a minor. Everybody at our school has to get a Bible minor, and everybody at our school has to go on a mission trip. So we've got that settled. But speaking to kids who have to be there is like speaking in prison. You have to begin by proving that there's a reason for what you're doing, just like you read.
Yeah.
A reason for the hope within you, and it literally is one of the greatest challenges. It's what I look forward to it all year, and then doing those the ones over this winter, like Disciple Now, the D Nows, and the winter retreats, because it's a shortened. You have to really bring meat.
Right.
So church camp, you can tell jokes a little bit more, but it keeps me young, keeps me going.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing a great job. I definitely want to jump into, because you shared it here a few days, and I know a little bit of your background, but I think your story as a whole, and I won't spoil it, but I think it would help a lot of people. I think our listeners would love to hear it. So if you would, I would love to hear your life story. If you could, as much detail or as much vagueness as if you want, but
I can do it quick.
yeah.
I'm an immigrant, Ergun Mehmet Caner, my name. But I guess the point of interest is I was a Muslim, a Turkish Muslim. We come to America. My father builds mosques. That's what he did. He was an architect. And I'm the oldest of the 3 sons. And now I'm in a context, we're moved to America. I become an American citizen when I'm 12, so 1978. I'm now in a context where I'd never lived in a place where they were all Christian around me. Christian or nominal is what I was surrounded by. And part of my personality is lone wolf kind of thing, and I just want to be left alone. And I am a Christian because of the testimony of one relentless boy. And I guess what is to the point of why I do what I do and why we're here is that after I got saved, I became a believer in Christ. I knew that the onus for my salvation was the relentlessness of the boy, but it was also I submitted everything I believed to brutal doubt, just doubt everything. That was a problem for me in the mosque, because in the masjid, you're not allowed to ask questions. And so you would go to your, what we call Sunday school class, except it's called madrasa, and you would go to the ulema. Ulema is you have no paid leaders in the mosque, but an ulema is a scholar or a teacher. And you'd go to the ulema and ask a question, they'd tell you, stop asking that question. And that just irritates my spirit to no end. So I become a Christian through the work of a young boy, a young church, small church, country people, and I become a believer in Christ. Well, now, because I'd never held a Bible, never had Sunday school, never had VBS, never did Awana, I had none of that. Here I was going into college. I now begin to submit my questions to a God that embraces them, to the only living God, but the only God that I kept noticing in the Bible that God didn't run from questions. We don't run from it. And so I quickly developed this curiosity, and I would throw questions. I became that, the annoying kid in the Sunday school class where they would use some word, or they'd throw something out, and I would throw my hand up and go, "No, what's that mean?" This is how ignorant I was. I put tabs in my Bible. The Quran is only 114 chapters. Supposedly every word out of the mouth of Allah, it's a fraud. But when you would say, you stand up in your Bible, or you stand up in your pulpit and you go, turn with me to Matthew chapter 4, verse, no clue. So to follow along, sometimes it took me 10, 15 minutes to find the book that they were referencing. And they'd given me a really small Schofield Chain Reference Bible, which I could read back then. Now I can't. But so I put tabs. I started using tabs.
Yeah.
I started writing my questions in the margins. And literally that was 44 years ago. I have never stopped, ever, because I think that we talk about life verse. I'll give you my favorite.
Yeah.
The Shema Israel is the most holiest citation for a Jewish man. The Lord thy God is one God, Deuteronomy 6, you should love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, thy soul, and thy strength. Jesus quotes that in Luke and adds something. Nobody ever pays attention to it. But when Jesus says, you have heard it said, and then he goes, and I say to you, you shall love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, strength, and mind. And I felt that was an affirmation to me. It meant that, okay, if I can submit my questions, and I'm allowed to ask questions, I'm encouraged to ask questions. It's not fancy. I'm not a smart person. I'm actually the dumbest guy in the room, but I'm curious, always curious. And so it engaged my curiosity. The thing about Christianity was, I call it the Socratic method. One of the notes I gave you is I make my students learn which books have how many questions. How many times is somebody allowed to ask the question? And again, it's a rhetorical method when God's speaking, but for us, it's getting past bumper stickers. I hate bumper stickers and cliches. And Christianity, when it's at its weakest, is cliches. Somebody dies and you go, well, it was his will. Oh, I'm going to punch you. Because what you just did was you reduced the Lord of heaven and earth to a don't ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Really what you're doing is, well, it's his will. It's not ours to ask. You're just an idiot. And so my whole life has been that curiosity.
That's amazing. When you said the question part of it, you're discouraged to ponder or to ask questions about this. I can see exactly how that could turn into a life of, okay, great, but I'm still curious. I'm still wondering. Okay, any logical person could probably start thinking through these as you get older. Start thinking through these things, right? And out of the Quran or whatever, and they're not adding up.
And if your God,
more questions,
and if your God or your system discourages asking questions, either they're too weak to take a challenge, or even more terrifying, I'm too weak for asking. The entire world of Buddhism, for instance, in Buddhism, the entire salvation system is based on something called the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. Right words, like question, but among them is mindlessness. Getting yourself to a spot in meditation where you don't ask anything.
How convenient.
You just accept it, right? And It's the reason I didn't get married till late in life. It's the reason I didn't have kids till late in life. It's the reason that I, again, come back to camp. I plan and prepare for every camp. There are certain eternal things that I will deal with. Like there are certain themes, but I'm not gonna come in with a rote manuscript, because it is good preaching and good teaching is exegete the crowd and exegete the text. And to be able to do that, to speak the language of the people and ask the questions they're asking, is literally every revival in Scripture, or whatever it is, 30 times in Scripture where somebody opens a book, like Ezra with the pulpit. They open the book and then they ask the questions or answer the questions that the people were asking. That was the complaints against Moses. We want the leeks and onions of Egypt. Why is this taking so long? It was only when, under the inspiration of God, that Moses answered those questions that the people shut up and listened. Now, I hate that I'm like those people, but I am. I am like those people. I don't think that anything, again, go back to marriage. If I can't talk to my wife and ask her questions about being married that are uncomfortable, why are we married?
Yeah.
I thought I'm supposed to be marrying my best friend. If you've got a real best friend, you can talk to them about anything. But if it's trying to guess, I'm not good at guessing. So when it comes to my faith, same thing. I had questions. I had issues. My biggest issues were not, as I shared with kids one of the days this morning. Was it this morning? Trinity never bothered me. Never did, because there was a guy in the Middle Ages who came up with the tripartite argument, which is what I used. The idea of space is Trinity, depth, width, and height. Time is Trinity. All three have to exist at the same moment, right? So you can't define height without having width and depth, right?
Sure.
You cannot have present without knowing what your past was, and defining your past. I had no problem. That was never an issue. Grace was a huge issue, because grace on an intellectual level doesn't make sense. Okay, so he sheds his blood. What's that got to do with me? Muslims will ask you, okay, so you're telling me I could be an evil person, live a sinful, nasty life, 90 years old, and then at the last minute I can confess and be saved. Yeah, 100%. Okay, but what's their but? Their but is it doesn't seem fair. Here's what's not fair. If I, in Islam, quote unquote, am 51% righteous, I get away with the 49%. Same thing, except in Christianity, it's not forgotten, it's forgiven. And for Christianity, he actually sheds his blood as an atonement, as covering, as a cleansing of my sin. So I don't mean to talk so much.
No.
That's all right. I do have, I guess, one question regarding Islam. It's a rapidly growing religion.
Yes.
Especially in the U.S. And I mean, you see like New York is starting to have like their
Mamdani.
Mamdani, and it seems like there's a different version of Islam here than it is overseas. So what are your thoughts on that? Why would people flock more towards Islam rather than Christianity?
That's the 24,000 question. Number one, we have statistics come from Focus on the Family, so I don't know exactly. Focus on the Family tells us somewhere between 25,000 and 35,000 women raised in Christian homes a year marry a Muslim man. It's the basis for the show's 90 Day Fiancé, which is the single most popular show on the A&E network. They've got every kind of offshoot to it. 90 Day Fiancé reverse, 90 Day. Well, you will hear these women. Most of them aren't strong Christians. The women aren't. But they were raised in a good Christian home. And they marry some guy. They will immediately say, well, he's so religious, which, again, I can't stand. And then they will say, and he lets me go to church. Now, I am the last thing you'll find among feminism. I can't stand those people. But I hear that language and my ears perk up. Are you really saying he lets me go to church? Lets me. Well, in Islam, a man can keep a woman out of paradise. and he will do whatever if he's just heck bent on marrying her. He'll do anything.
Yeah.
As soon as they're married, or even more strongly, if the first time they have a child, he becomes hardcore.
Yeah.
And it's almost every time. That's one thing. That's in relationship ways around the world, the fact that a man is allowed 4 wives, you wonder, where are the American feminists going, hey, that doesn't seem fair. They don't say a word. They're terrified. Secondly, I went to the Dallas Pride Parade. I don't go in, I don't march, but I love watching that stuff because, again, here's a shift in our culture. We've gone from a modern culture to what they used to call postmodern culture, and now I believe we have something that I like to call transmodernity, and it's different. It's not that everybody has a right, and it's not that everybody's right. It's that everybody has a right to be right, right? Mm. So they're marching. And among this crowd on Irving Boulevard in Dallas, Texas, queers for Islam. Now, if you're in an Islamic country, 52 of them, if you are found to be a homosexual and playing the female part in a homosexual relationship, they build a wall 3 meters high, so 9 feet, 10 feet tall. Either throw you off of it to kill you, or drop it on you to maim you, and then you have to leave the town, like a scapegoat. You're not allowed to live in that town anymore. You will live crippled. They usually die in the desert. Mm. Queers for Islam is like brisket for, pigs for brisket. Why? Why? They don't embrace you. They don't love you. They don't care about you. Well, remember, in transmodernity, they don't just want us to allow them to get married, whatever it may be. They want us to approve of that. They want us to say it's right. Mm. We'll never do that. Not anybody who's a Bible-believing Christian will never do that. But you start seeing this shift. And what will happen next, by the way, is the pendulum will shift back.
Yeah.
It always does. Even in our churches. We fight over worship, right? We fight over worship because worship has an emotional component of our conversation with God. It is, in fact, the emotional side of prayer. Well, then what happens is we shift back. It's not whatever goes around comes around. That's recycling, and that's reincarnation. No, I don't believe in that. But I do believe the pendulum swings back to an intellectual thing. I have no problem with the intellectualism. I try to be one of them. Mm. But when it comes to issues like Islam, it's going to demand a consistent response from the American community. But right now, their visceral hatred for Israel, they keep calling it Palestine. It's never been Palestine. There's no such thing as a Palestinian, ever. The West Bank of what? Jordan.
Right.
It's the West Bank of Jordan.
Right.
Well, until they get past that, this is not going to happen, but it will shift. It will shift. I hate to say that maybe it'll take another 9/11, because I don't want anybody to die, but it might. It might take another, and by the way, it has to be a nearby death. The thing that was different about 9/11 for us was I was teaching at Criswell when it happened. It has to happen on our shores. It's just like the difference between tribulation and the Great Tribulation. First 3.5 years, right, after the rapture, something happens, but it's going to happen. A third of the rivers are poisoned. But if it doesn't affect, if you're in the 2/3, it affects us. But just how much did the hurricane in Maui affect me? Not really. You think about it, you may send $1 or $2, but it has to affect us. And so coming to 9/11 was so radically impactful in American culture because it hit us.
Yeah.
Whatever's going to happen, it will hit us. And meaning that everybody in America will be affected one way or another. It might be the reason, I don't know, because I have no idea about politics, but it may be the reason why we're fighting to keep Iran from developing a nuclear system.
Sure.
Because they would drop it.
Yeah.
There are certain, again, intellectual things that I wish people would respond with. We don't, because we mix empathy and stupidity. So again, we're the feminist. A woman is whipped. If a man and a woman are caught in an illicit relationship in an Islamic country, she is whipped within an inch of her life. The man is often forgiven because a man is according to Islam, according to Muhammad, he is a victim of his desires. Yeah. So in Sunni Islam, the woman is beaten, stoned to death sometimes. In Shia Islam, it's even worse, because in Shia Islam, a man is not just allowed to have 4 wives, he's allowed to have a mutta, M-U-T-A. A mutta is a temporary bride. So we're here at camp. Home for you is Edgewood?
No, Lake Worth.
Lake Worth.
Lake Worth.
Okay, so home for you is Lake Worth. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you're going to go 2 weeks on a trip, Austin. That's far enough, okay? You tell your wife, the only requirement you have for a mutta is you have to tell your wife that while I'm there, I have needs that have to be met. And the second requirement is if she gets pregnant, whoever that woman is, if she gets pregnant, you have to take care of that child, meaning financially take care of that child. But any woman in the American culture, if she heard that, would go,
Right.
why didn't she get nothing? They're not doing that.
Yeah.
Not the feminists, not the women preachers. They're not doing that because, again, they want to seem empathetic and sympathetic. So they shut their mouths. Or they turn their attention and they rage to us,
Right.
you know? So with Islam, right now they're taking strong advantage. 1,500 years. In 1,500 years, Islam has never coexisted in any country as a minority, ever. Never assimilated, ever. And when they were in the majority, have ever allowed any freedom whatsoever to the minority religions, ever. You can't point to one country. You can't point to Turkey. You can't talk to ours.
Yeah.
You can't talk to anybody. So what will have to happen, I think, is, sadly, some cataclysmic event that will get everybody's attention for a moment.
Yeah.
You know? Does that help? The idea that right now we're just trying to be so nice.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you talked about this a couple nights ago about sort of like media.
Yeah.
Kind of, does it seem like media is kind of grooming, well, let's just say the American society to kind of accept that more and more?
No problem. Yeah. The problem is Muslims don't like to be groomed. Here's the hard part. I'll get asked the question, especially in the areas of prophecy. Do you think that the Antichrist will be Muslim? No. He'll be from the 10 nations, obviously. He will be wounded in the head, obviously. He will not be a Muslim because Muslims, whoever it's going to be, he has to be able to make everybody play together in a way that everybody accepts it. First thing he's going to have to do is explain where we all went, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think the alien thing is an issue. If in fact Christ is going to return soon, which I do believe, I think that the alien thing is perfect.
Yeah.
We've talked exactly about this before
Have you
on
really?
this podcast.
Where what will happen is once we're raptured, because again, your house is empty, my house is empty, your car's sitting there with keys. We leave all that stuff behind, right? Your job is now not filled. So somebody's going to have to rise up. Again, Scripture indicates it's going to be the Antichrist. But somebody's going to have to rise up who has the capacity to say, hey, look, we just lost 1 billion people, or whatever the number of Christians on the earth is. And it has to be plausible enough to get everybody else to go, okay. Because panic, our first response is always panic. In general, panic. If you're in a library and you scream run, people run to the exits. So something will happen to make people run to the exits. Somebody's going to be able to explain in a way that is plausible enough for a 24-hour news society to go, all right, we're in. That makes sense. Islam's not that way. We don't mix well with anybody. So it's going to have to be, it could be New Age, but I think it could also be Mamdani. It could be, not him, I'm saying socialistic Islam.
Sure.
Is a demand of a communistic, it's communism plus Sharia law.
Yeah.
If we could find somebody who goes communist first and doesn't put Sharia in for a while, 3.5 years later, Daniel 9.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that could pull it off.
Makes sense. One of the questions that I had was, regarding your story and regarding questioning some of these things and not having answers and being told that you shouldn't ask. Did you start to have these doubts or these questions while you were still Muslim?
Yes.
Before you were converted?
My questions as a Muslim were not dissimilar to my questions now.
Sure.
But they were always things like, you have to answer evil. Remember, Ravi Zacharias said there's 4 needs everybody has, right? You have the need to belong to something. You have the need for knowledge, meaning answers.
Yeah.
You have to know where you came from. You have to know where you're going. And the major issue, it seems to be something we get asked all the time. You could spend 6 weeks on because they think they've got us when it comes to the issue of evil.
Right.
If there's a God who's all powerful, yes, I believe there is. Okay. If he's all powerful and there are kids born with AIDS, here's our question. And they don't even ask a question, they're just making a speech. Either he doesn't want to heal that kid, in which case he's not all loving, or he can't heal that kid, in which case he's not all powerful. And they think they got you. And I had that question as Muslims, Islam loses. So we get defeated. I'm talking about my people. The Iran-Iraq war. Iraq versus Iran. Iraq wins over Iran.
Yeah.
Turkey fights everybody. Cypriots, Greeks, everybody. But you lose a war. They lost World War I, lost World War II. Turkey always jumps in on the wrong side every time. My question is, why does evil win? Their answer back is the Christian equivalent of hyper-Calvinism, which is Allah, or inshallah, Allah willed it. And the Quran is more Calvinistic than the Bible is. I'm not a fan of Calvinism, you can guess.
Yeah.
The Quran teaches Allah will love whom he loves. Allah will damn who he will.
Yeah. Predestination.
And willful, happy predestination.
Yeah.
There's actually a preacher by the name Paul Washer who said the last sound that the non-elect will hear before they are in hell is the cheers of the elect. And the cheers of angels. You think, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
If he's willing that none should perish, that's a contradiction.
Right.
But for them, because they've accepted their system over the Bible, God predestines everything to an eternal decree. You go to hell because you were decreed to go to hell, which means you are created to be hated. I have a sermon called True Love Hates, based on that. The idea that he created you specifically to be a vessel of wrath, or he created you specifically to be damned. Again, I asked that question as a Christian. That doesn't sound like God. And it certainly doesn't sound like scriptures where Jesus says he seeks and saves that which is lost, and angels rejoice when somebody's saved. In Islam, it's 100% that way.
Interesting.
Allah hates you. And that's why it's us versus them. In Christianity, the fact that he says, you got to love your enemy, and he says, Father, forgive them, man, that just disturbed my soul.
So do you think before, Jerry was persistent and
Attack it, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you already kind of had these trepidations?
For 3.5 years, I would ask him questions.
Yeah.
Because I was always looking, I was always looking for a Christian who wouldn't duck.
Yeah.
Now as a Christian, here's the difference. I don't go to Christian coffee houses. No
Sure.
offense.
Yeah.
But usually they're populated by friends of the owner,
Sure.
people who like the music. No, it's plain Point of Grace. No, that's awesome. But I think the only place I'm really effective, or would be effective, would be surrounded by heathens, right? Surrounded by heathens who talk philosophy, especially near campuses. I've got 20 of them.
Sure.
Because our school's right down the street from Arlington, UT Arlington.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. We got roasting places. We got a place called Avoca that does its own roasting, which I love. And you go in there, and there's guys who have one class on Schopenhauer, or they've just taken the first semester of philosophy, and they are ready to argue and fight about everything. So you got one of my favorite ones right now. We will run out of time just by me meandering.
It's
about
all
this
good, brother.
stuff.
It's all
But
good.
one of the greatest fights that started because of our school where we're at is you have to now provide a vegetarian option in the cafeteria. And UT being right next to us, well, it's not just vegetarian anymore. It's vegetarian versus octo-vegetarian, pescatarian, and vegan. So their fight is they believe that plants can feel pain. And if you think all life is sacred, then if you are picking broccoli for the purpose of picking broccoli, you're raping the ground. And the insanity of that argument, though, is sitting in a room filled with people talking about this, wearing leather jackets but they don't get the irony yet, but because they're 17, 18 years old.
Right.
And I love it. I lived for that. I had those questions before. I still have those questions.
Yeah.
And I pray before God that I never stop. I really believe, passionately, that as long as my wheels are turning, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to. There's too much right now, especially moving into a socialistic period of time. There's too much temptation to retire because they don't want us around.
Sure.
The older folks. I'm not talking about me being old. I'm just talking about all of us in general who've survived one or two generations. They want you to go away.
Yeah.
Mamdani is playing that. Give them free education for the young ones and raise the time for retirement against the old ones. Go away. We're reminders and remnants of the greatest generation. We're reminders and remnants of the last wars fought. As long as I have this curiosity, I hope and pray before God that I not only engage in it, but that I feel like I'm contributing to the arguments. Not to solve them, not to walk away from them, actually to poke the bear. I like to, push them a little bit.
Sure, sure.
I think that's the way you solve things.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I know what your answer is going to be on this, it's just more just kind of to initiate the next point of conversation, but why should Christians pursue apologetics as an essential component of their faith?
Not only do I think it's essential, I think it's also instinctual. I think it's part of sanctification. As I grow closer to Christ, as you grow closer to Christ, what's the first level of Christianity? Not levels in being more saved than somebody else, but what's the first level? It's an emotional response sometimes. It is, I love Jesus, I get a prayer book, markers, I start listening to Christian music, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. Instinctually, however, if in fact we're supposed to engage our mind, Romans 12, 1 and 2, by the renewing of your mind. Here's our problem. For the longest time, we've defined Christianity this way. We say that the person who's gone to 712 seminars or has degrees, that's a good Christian. No, they could be the laziest Christian you know. The best Christian is a servant.
Yeah.
And here's the Lord and Savior, God incarnate, washing the feet of his disciples as an act of service. And his ministry, to use the big fancy term for it, was called peripatetic ministry. Walk and talk. That's peripatetic. He would walk, and then he would use, look at that tree, look at that grass, look at that bird. So he used parables? That's why I'm an evidentialist. I believe that he created the earth as an example to the living beings, because again, he's created unconscious life, conscious life, and then us, self-conscious life, right?
Yeah.
Everything he's created points to him. If that's the case, then I can use the wood from this room to show you that there's a God who loves you. If we knew the time and the history of this building and what God did in the lives of the people that built it to get us to this point so that these kids can sit in air conditioning, for instance. There are ways you can approach it. I think that not doing apologetics is unnatural. It can be, in my world, in the academic world, it can be unbelievably snobby and erudite. And we find a big word to use when a small word is better, we try to write. I'll give you an example. When did Paul write Galatians? I think he wrote Galatians before the fight in Acts 15, before the church fought in Jerusalem over where the gospel should go. But that doesn't matter. There are those that wrote books that said he and written in whole books on the fact that Paul wrote it after that, and that he's referring to it in Galatians 2 something, right? What about the answer being that's not the purpose of the book?
That's right.
The simpler answer is shut up, stop arguing.
That's right.
But you see, we have to write our books.
Yeah.
I think that's why Paul says at the end of his life, he goes, bring me the book and the books, come before winter. But also, I've got my book. And the point is that there are no dumb questions. There are dumb people.
Sure.
And I love the fact, if people aren't asking questions, which is apologetics, they're not renewing their mind. If I don't renew my mind, I'm not growing in my faith, because what you believe eventually affects how you behave. The old what's down in the well comes up in the bucket.
Yeah.
If I don't engage my brain, if I don't ask the right questions, I become a zombie.
Yeah.
You go to work, you come home, you go to church, you check everything off on the list, and you never change.
I love that. So at Lake Worth, we've cultivated an environment, especially in the youth. Under my father, I don't know how many weeks or how many sermons out of the month or however it calculates, but apologetics is so massive in our youth group, and as a church in general, and this podcast. The way that I always kind of rationalize it is, great, you're saved. You made the decision, you're eternally secure, 100%. You can't be plucked from the Father's hand. But there's going to become a time in your life where you're going to have to own it. You have to, and defend it, and you have to figure out why you believe what you believe. Because you're going to be tested.
That's the point on the testing. If you don't mind me jumping in.
Go for it.
Just every single person has a mountain of hell that they're going to go through.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Hell on earth. Something that hits them so close, just like I said about culturally. It doesn't just hit, it hits hard and it hits close. If, in fact, your faith isn't prepared for that, people run from church, they run from God, they develop every excuse in the world. It's too easy to come up with excuse. But it's also understandable. I think there's the moment somebody dies in your family, to whom you were very close.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who, right before the camp started, a spouse died. Been married for 20 years. Spouse died. They are left with kids and grandkids, no answers. Right? What makes it worse is when we go to the funeral, because you don't know what to say. You may walk up and go, well, heaven got another angel. Oh, shut up.
I hate that.
You're not an angel. I'm not wearing wings. I'm higher than the angels according to the Psalms.
That's right.
Stop that. Heaven. They did that when one of the Von Erichs died. Heaven needed another wrestler. Okay. What happens, though, is to the person to whom they were the closest, their first thing is Job. Their first thing is, what did I do wrong, God?
Yeah.
And if your faith is not engaged intellectually, meaning asking the harder questions, you either begin to resent God or doubt God.
Yeah.
You resent him because he did it to you and not somebody else, or you doubt him because he didn't jump in like you were expecting.
Yeah.
Name it and claim it, doubt it and shout it and doubt it. What's going to happen if all of a sudden I don't believe it and achieve it? What happens if all of a sudden we didn't prosper? Bankruptcy, divorce, physical illness, death by cancer, whatever. If your faith after salvation hasn't developed and matured to be able to handle those questions, we will lose you. You will come in the front door and out the back door of the church.
100%.
I think that goes to like what we were talking about with the conversion to Islam too, where you were talking about like Christian women marrying a Muslim man.
Oh, it's horrible.
That would only particularly happen for someone who probably isn't pursuing apologetics or pursuing the Bible in its entirety.
Or maybe find another way to say that. What if we said, they answering the harder questions or asking the harder questions, or said, instead of apologetic, it seems to scare people.
Yeah.
The first book that we wrote with Harvest House was called Popular Encyclopedia of Apologetics. Sold very well, more than I deserve. But I fought the title. I get popular. That makes sense because you're trying to say, hey, it's easy to understand. But just using the word apologetics, number one, most people think you're apologizing. Number two, it's a big word when we could say defense of the faith. And so find another way to say, or for me to find another way to say it. And those are my degrees that I'm teaching in. So I try to find a way to say it so that it doesn't intimidate. Because let's be honest, most of the people that we serve really only think about God when they pick up their Bible out of their car that's been in there since the last time they put it down and went to church. And now you're asking them for the next 40 minutes of a service to engage their brain, to think about their faith. And again, that's why Jesus added the mind, not just your body and your soul. So it's not just service, it's also skepticism and speculation and whatever. The reason I call it Socratic method is because it's required by the academic institutions for them to understand, because they're all nerds like we are. It doesn't help one student. Kids don't know Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. They don't know any of that stuff. And furthermore, they shouldn't have to. But they do know their questions.
Yeah.
Why are my parents divorced? Why did I have to flunk out of school? Why can't I afford my car? Why? Whatever. And all the whys, if Christianity is not able to intellectually and emotionally answer those questions, we are nailed. We are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is there will come a cataclysm, either culturally or in a person's life. Somebody you love. They hit that wall. They hit that mountain. We don't got it. Oh, my Father. We not only lose them, but I think that we are guilty for losing them. Because they may have asked the question we didn't answer.
Sure. Yeah. We should have an answer. We should have a response. I mean, I think that's why it's so important. That's why I like to harp on it. There should be a growing sanctification that happens.
Yeah.
That you should be able to give an answer. You should be able to get to a place in your walk with the Lord that when it's challenged, especially as men, you should be able to step up and say, here's your answer.
So you guys have watched me for 3 days use humor.
Yeah.
I use humor because if you wouldn't, you'd cry.
Sure.
Right? There's certain things in life that are just so devastating, so horrible. About, like I said, half the kids in the camp, they're going to go home to horrible homes. Yeah. Not good homes. Well, if you're not careful, you then resent the kid who's got a great dad and great mom. I used to resent the kids who went to church their whole lives. Because again, I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I had a dad who not only went to the mosque, but we went to the mosque specifically against other people. You know, you're going to the mosque and you're like, look at them.
Yeah.
Because they're the outside. They were the evil people because we're surrounded by you. I would resent them. And then when I became a Christian, again, resentment. I would look at kids when the invitation was given and somebody would come forward, or family would pray at the altar. Okay, where's mine? Where's mine? Mom's not here, dad's not here, Aaron and me, none of us are here. I'm sitting here with my friends, and I call them my family, and they are, but where's my real family at? If you can't develop through Scripture first, because you identify with the people that go through it themselves. That's why Job is one of my favorites, you know?
Yep.
But not just Job, Jonah. Jonah's biggest problem was he hated Nineveh. And despise those people. And why would you forgive them?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally resent that. I relate to that completely.
Sure.
So I have that. I have that instinct of, I check your heart, guard the heart. I constantly have to find myself checking my own heart. I think it's the reason. I do think it's the reason why Jesus said, if this cup could go, if I could pass up this cup, let it go from me. You know, how do you love the people that are about to whip you? How are you going to love the people that are beating you with a cat of nine tails? How do you love the people that they're not just participating? They wanted Barabbas. How do I love the people who specifically, it's not just who you stand with, it's who you stand against, and they purposefully stood against me.
Yeah.
And in Christianity, let's be honest, the hardest thing to deal with is betrayal.
Yeah.
You know, the sharpest knife is in the friendly hand, the person who can get close enough to stab you. And then you think, and they do it with, you know, or a church goes through a fight and they say, well, pastor, we were praying about this, and then they fire him. They weren't praying about squat. It was a political move. Now, I'm the loudmouth who will say, you weren't praying and you're a demon. But for the pastor, he can't say that. He's a shepherd. If you're not built to survive that, it's why we have X's. Ex choir members, ex Sunday school teachers, ex pastors.
Do you think that there's been a softening in the last, say, half century or so of Christian, let's say Christian men?
Oh.
And that has led us to a climate in which we have, I mean, you have men that used to stand up for what they believe and make it known, but now it's just path of least resistance, just lay down, quiet.
They learned that method, but they learned that response mechanism. It's a coping mechanism. When you open your mouth, you're attacked. Wes Huff, one of our buddies, Jamal Javanji. Jamal got saved in the same mosque, out of the same mosque that I did. Now, 10 years later, but you stand up and you open your mouth. You're not just going to get attacked. You're going to get attacked by people who call themselves Christians. Yeah? So what is the natural coping mechanism? Just shut up. Your friends and family know what you believe. Don't pick a fight. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
I got chased out of town once by Calvinists who, again, were doing this for your good. Yeah, no, you're not. Well, what do? Do you take a job where you can make just as much money? There's easier ways to be a minister of the gospel, easier ways to be a parent. For men, it's easier to keep my mouth shut, put my head down, and go to work. Martin Luther King said, at the end of my life, the thing that hurt me the most was not the attacks of my enemies, but the silence of my friends. I believe it's not a softening. I really do believe there's a movement of God that raised up, because you keep seeing it over and over, of men raising up. Even go back to the 90s, you know, the coach from the Buffaloes, from Colorado, men's movements. Because in Islam, it's one of the great arguments. Islam says men lead our mosques. Yeah, they do. They do. In Christianity, not so much.
Yeah.
And so in response to that, and it's not just that, there's other religions like that. But yeah, in response to that, I think a lot of churches, you see men rising up and going, yeah, we're done. We're not going to sit. We're going to stand. But if they don't count the cost, you're going to stand, and the first bullet you take is going to come from behind you. Every time. Preparing somebody's heart to know the people that stand beside, not everybody who's by your side is on your side. Yeah? So preparing you that the first attacks you'll probably receive will be Christians. You know, you stand up and say, we want our church to grow, and some lady's upset because we took out the piano that her great-grandma donated. Somebody took her parking spot. We didn't, you know, we didn't respond correctly, and she's upset, and she's going to talk about it. It's finding men who will rise up instead of, not because, and in spite of. Yeah, I do think there's number one, the softening of our culture is just it's natural.
Yeah.
Wussy men make the best movie leads. He's sensitive. I'm not sensitive. But you notice there's a method to my madness, always. Number one, I will warn you ahead of time that I am this way. Because I like them being surprised. I don't like them being disappointed. Right? Why did he say that? I say that because that's the way I'm thinking. That's the way I think, and that's the process that I go through. And when I tell you that I love everybody, I just don't like most people, and I'm not a hugger,
Sure.
you know, those things.
Yeah.
There's a method for me saying that. It's developed over the years of people who wanted to hug me, and I pushed them away and hurt their feelings, and now they became my enemy. Not that I wanted an enemy.
Yeah.
But there's a method to that. There's a method to the way I approach apologetics, method to the fact that I use humor, method just because I have a goal to get them to pay attention in a way that they're asking, oh, it's me standing in the need of prayer, Lord. To get them to that moment. I mean, how many of our people, you have a great sermon from the pastor, what's their first thought? Well, I wish Steve was here to hear that. Not Steve, you.
Yeah.
You're the heathen. Well, to get them to that point, they have to like you, they have to understand you, you have to be on their level, and you and I both know that you got a room of 10 people, you got 10 different levels of faith.
That's right.
10 different, and not that one's more saved than somebody else, I'm just saying 10 different,
Where someone's at.
yeah, conditions. Let me give you a great illustration, because I won't get a chance to do it here. I do my Mars Hill project, Acts 17, right? Every class. Well, when we do the Cathedral of Hope, which is in Dallas, largest gay church in the world, they are a church. 5,000 gays a week go to that church. 3 services on a Sunday. On the back wall is written the words, I am saved by the God who created me gay. Okay? So you understand, it's a messed up theological system.
Yeah.
It's got more problems than help.
Perversion, for sure.
It is, because it's not just perversion, it's almost like saying we're a church of alcoholics,
Yeah.
Okay, I get you're struggling with. No, we're not struggling with it. We're brewing.
It's just antidote.
Okay. So this last time I brought my students in, I had prepared them for everything I thought. I prepared them for this thing. I had country boys every time. Big mouth kids that are 17 years old, little innocent, sweet girls that are they are like bait on the hook to the lesbians. She was very nice. No, come here. Don't sit next to them.
Yeah.
Well, so we pull up in the parking lot of the church. Services. We were coming to the 11 o'clock. So 7. It was 10:45. One of my students, typical kid from Amarillo, weighs about that much. Got a belt buckle like a hubcap, lift on his truck, dog box. But when he steps out of his truck, this kid who had all his stuff memorized, but he goes, "Hey, we're going to sit together." Him and his buddy. He goes, "We're going to sit together." No, you're not. You have to sit separate. That's the rule. Well, we're going to sit together. Again, no, you're not. I'll fail you. Finally, time's running out. I'm afraid we're going to miss the opening. And I go, what is wrong with, what is the issue? He says, no joke, I don't want to get the gay on me. And he did this, like wiping his arm. And I said, yeah, I don't think that's how it spreads. To be honest, it's not a game of tag, We get in there. I had prepared them for the gays. I had prepared them for the lesbians. I didn't prepare them, and I wasn't prepared for the transgender people. And there was a guy, apparently I have a reputation somewhere. This guy walks up. He is 6 foot tall. He's got heels, so he's like 6'4". He's wearing 6-inch heels. He is full beard, eye makeup, blue dress. And he's calling me every name in the book. He's here. He's right here. And I didn't know what to do with him, but the pastor, a British guy, the pastor's British, pastor pushes him away and says, go away. And then he says something fascinating. He says, here's our issue. In 2020, this would have been last year, so 2025, we don't like them. And I said, well, who's them? He said, the 79 gender people. Why? We know who we are. We know that we were created this way. Again, these are his words, not my words, but the entire movement of transgender is based on God made a mistake. My created order, even if they don't believe in a God, my creation was wrong, and thus I'm fixing it now. I'm a cat, I'm a whatever. And he says they live in fear of their identity. It's why the identity movement is so big. Pronouns, names, all that stuff that I joke about. The reason it's an issue right now is they have no connection to a God who had a design for them. They're the undesigned in their minds. God made a mistake, if there's a God. And so because of that, this is a whole new, I didn't deal with this, say, 5 years ago. This wasn't an issue. And now I have to sit through training where somebody says there's 72 genders or 76 genders. And why are there so many? Well, we have to come up with new words because we don't fit. It's identity. That's why the identity in Christ is the issue right now. The issue. Because right now, in our churches, kids, they don't just wonder what they're going to do with their lives. Who am I? I know I'm in Christ, but who am I? If they're saved, who am I? What am I? Am I a powerful leader? Am I a man who's going to rise up and lead my family? Am I, because I live with fear, anxiety, depression, all these things that people now talk about and define. We didn't. We had those same issues, but the way I dealt with them was push it down, push
it way down,
push it
suppress
down,
that,
push it down, put a dip in and move. And I have to develop a whole new system because I had never considered that until he said it, and that was last year. I'd never considered that it is a rudderless movement. There's no real leader. Sure. If you think about it.
Sure.
Because they, in the definition of who they are, how they define themselves, they're not leaders.
Right. Well, it's just the whole thing is just drenched in so much self-doubt.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good word.
There's no
based on self-doubt. That's a good word. That's a good way of saying it.
There's just no anchor to any, because how do you build a person? How do you build anything? Well, with a foundation.
Right.
When there's no foundation, when there's no anchor, when there's nothing to
you could write
to.
a book on what you just said, because and it's a needed book, because without a foundation.
Well, think about it, right? I mean, anything, a man, a pastor, even this building has a foundation. You can't build our pastor Zach says this a lot. You can't build a Christian overnight. You won't build a building overnight, unless you're Amish. But but it takes
time for the barn raising.
Yep. But it takes time.
Well, but we also ask. This is fair. I constantly ask the question: what's the purpose of this class? Right? I think stupid classes are stupid ideas. If I have to take a class on cartography when I've got a Garmin, you're an idiot. Why are you making me take this class? Sure. Same thing in the building. What's the purpose of your degree? What's the purpose of this course? And in a church, you say, what's the purpose of a Christian? Well, you win them to win them, right? That was what I'd said. Free people. Oh, I forget what the other part. Hurt people. Okay, so we want to be a church that doesn't hurt people. We want to be a church that disciples you so that you disciple others. If I can make it that clear, every single program will run through that sieve, through that filter. But apply that to a human being. What's my purpose? To take my Adderall. Why? It makes me normal. So you're not normal without the Adderall? No. You've just told me your problem. Or they'll come to school, they have whatever meds they have to take, or whatever they do to dodge, distract, awake and bake, blaze to find just some justification for their lives. I struggle with this because I have a son who has no direction. No offense to my boy. I'll even talk about him tonight, but he just hasn't found it yet. Well, that is literally 400 kids every semester at my school. Yeah. They show up with, 80% of kids, I think it's 77% of kids change their major. Yeah. Why? Well, because they didn't get it right the first time. Because it's a hard question to ask. It forces you to consider your options and your choices. And to be honest, sometimes mom and daddy told me I should be this. I took marketing, I took business, I took nursing, I took education because I was told I was good at it because of an aptitude test, whatever. Why am I here? What am I doing? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
I don't fear the transgender movement. I like it. I like to embrace it. I like to embrace the people who ask those questions, if they'll ask the question.
Yeah.
But if they want me to identify with them, meaning you have to call me my pronoun. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Matter of fact, I'm going to call you every name other than that, because you are not defined by the search. Like I said, this morning, what I said, it's not the plan of salvation that saves me. It's the man of salvation. I'm saved by Jesus, not the words, not the method, not how I stood on which foot and which arm. I struggle in my personal life with my son because he doesn't know and I can't tell him. Yeah. You're the son of a minister. He's the son of a minister. That's just a hard definition. But what if that's not your call? What if that's not your passion? Then you end up doing in the flesh what you can only do in the spirit. I find the classroom sacred. My favorite place to be is in front of my computer, doing something like this, trying to find a way to say an answer so that the average person can come up with it. One of the questions I got was from a mom who said, "My baby died. Where'd it go?" That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, a wrong answer came from Augustine, which is why they baptize babies. You know, they say he's under the covenant. Ah, it's stupid. You just got the baby wet. But I love the question.
Yeah.
And you can identify with that, or you can relate to it. And if you do it in church, I bet you there's 20% of the women there that have miscarried.
Yep. Well, there's so much, like, and that question in particular, what a great example for the hope that we have in the future. You can turn such a negative question, such a negative experience for many women, like you just said, to a beautiful answer. Like, hey, yes, this is terrible, and I feel for you, and I love you, but there's going to be a day, if you're in Christ, there will be a day where you will embrace that child.
That's right. You'll embrace them.
And that is so powerful.
Okay, so I'll ask you their follow-up. I don't have the answer. Literally, I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Here was her follow-up. How old will my baby be in heaven?
How old will we all be in heaven?
Exactly. There are those, the answer in the Middle Ages was we will be the age of Christ when he died. So it's mid-30s.
Yeah.
But what if you died before then, like a baby?
Sure.
Or is my grandma going to be my age? We don't have clear teaching. We see that through the glass darkly, right? But you would think that there would be a clear answer. No. He described where we're going to be, not how we're going to be. And we usually mess up on that, right? I'm going to be an angel in heaven. I'm going to float on a cloud and be a cloud potato. But she followed up. She said, okay, if that's the answer, how old is my child going to be? Is he going to be a baby in heaven for eternity? No. The only thing that Scripture teaches is a glorified body, which means no wheelchair ramps, right?
Right.
So you'll be healed. Okay. How old? I don't know. I don't have the answer, and I haven't read anybody that's answered it yet. So
Yeah.
No, I mean, there isn't a clear answer.
I don't think so. I think there's got to be somebody who speculates on it.
I think the age of Christ at that, like, mid-30s is plausible, but I'm not dogmatic about it.
Right.
Because, I mean, another thing that we say all the time on our podcast is, where the scriptures whisper, I'm not going to yell.
That's a good word.
So
It's like God only reveals what he wants us to know.
Okay, so then the follow-up question to that be, why would God not want me to know the answer? Are there stupid questions? No. Because look at all the questions Job asked. And look, I have that list, you have that list of questions in the New Testament.
yeah,
In the Old Testament, some of the questions just hit, because Job deals with three buddies, right? And then a fourth guy who comes along and he starts asking questions. And some of their questions are stupid. But to be honest, if there's an answer to the question, I'm not looking in the right place. That's all I have. That's all I got right now, is I don't have the answer to that. So either I'm asking it wrong, or I'm trying to look for certainty where there shouldn't be. Because he does say, look, how do you hate somebody that you've seen and love a God you've never seen? That's fair.
yeah.
And that means that's why you never saw him. I'll give you one more, because I'm probably boring you guys.
No, not at
But
all.
I'm engaged in all this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
One of the great blessings of God that I never thought of. Never. When did Moses die? Moses died looking into the promised land. Why was he not allowed into the promised land? Threw the rock, hit the stick and
Smote the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and messed it up, right? So he representing the law, brought us to the promised land, but couldn't get us into the promised land. Joshua, whose name also means Jesus, got them in the promised land. I get it. Makes total sense. But then the Mount of Transfiguration. Who's on the Mount of Transfiguration? Moses. Which means Moses does get in. I literally never thought about it until I'm just reading this old guy, Kylan Dedich. Wait a minute. Moses did get to see the promised land. Not just spiritually looking down, but at the Mount of Transfiguration, there is Jesus, Elijah, and Moses. Moses did get to be in, but not when he wanted it to happen.
That's right. Yeah.
And something like that, to me, I have goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps because I think, God fulfilled a promise to a guy that he had to tell you don't get this promise, and he gave it to him anyways. But he gave it to him afterwards, and he got to see the fulfillment of his search for 120 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. That helps, and that gives me hope.
Right.
That's apologetics. Now, I don't know how to do it because I don't know we were talking about this down at Houston Baptist, McFarland. Is there a new word for it? Because the term they gave us is global apologetics. I teach world religions. Is there a way to say answering doubt?
Yeah.
Because I have a tendency to lean toward doubt. There's got to be some way to do it, call it. But it is assurance. It is the mind, the engagement, the renewing of your mind, the let my people think kind of stuff. I don't know. But the next generation, we are the first generation who asked that question about Islam and such. You know that? Think about this. One of the things I say often is, God said, go to all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. We didn't, by and large, so he brought the world here. Global apologetics, the way we're doing it, talking about Islam, Hinduism. I brought my Rig Veda, the Hinduism. We were the first generation to do that. When we were kids, we would have a mission night. A missionary would come, usually dressed in traditional garb. Usually, if they taught cults, they taught Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons.
Right.
And the guy would get up there and go, this is a spoon from my country where I serve. Pass that around. And that was it. If we saw Hindu, it was some naked person in National Geographic. They're here.
Yeah.
Now, we are the first generation. The kids that come after us, they're going to build much better than we're building because we're asking the harder questions. We're sort of digging through granite right now. But it's insane. It really is.
Yeah.
How are they going to engage with Islam? Either you defeat Islam or you are defeated by them.
Yeah.
There's no other option.
Yeah.
None.
There's definitely not a pattern of compromise or assimilation.
Nope.
It's very hostile.
Nope.
It's very hostile.
There's only been 3 people ever to stop Islam. 3 warriors. One was Charles Martel, Charlemagne's granddaddy, the Hammer, 732. And he did it. He captured 3 regiments, killed everybody but about 20 guys, had them dig the holes, threw the bodies in the holes, and covered them in pigs. He then told the 20 to go back. What happened? Because you can't go to heaven touched by the pig.
Right.
Second guy, World War I, guy named Black Jack Pershing. And again, he spread the rumor that we were dipping our bullets in pig's blood. And the Turks surrendered like that. Because again, you can't go to paradise.
Right.
Third guy was actually just our military. We're the first first Iraq War, which, God help us, we stopped too soon. But really, we're the first people to ever engage Islam and stop it. America fought the Barbary pirates first. That was our first war after the revolution. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. So the first people we had to fight were Muslims.
Yeah.
We are literally the one thing that keeps Islam from conquering the world. So I think we're the generation that is a little scared. I am. Because if we don't raise up a generation that does it, we are nailed. It's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
But I also get real encouraged because you see kids that have got they have more guts than we do.
Yeah.
So
Definitely noticed that. And as we kind of wrap up here, Doctor, but it's there's a like this generation. I would say probably after me or maybe younger, a little bit younger than me. But
how old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay.
So maybe just a little bit younger. This is the TikTok generation. Viral video. There's not a lot of reserve. There's a lot of boldness just to kind of do whatever, say whatever, talk to anybody. There's not a lot of shyness happening.
That's true.
And it wasn't always that way. I mean, my generation, there was a little more reserve happening.
We kept to ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also promoted because I grew up in an environment that was anti-Christian. So
Were you really?
Yeah, and not like
Okay, anti what form?
not super bad. My parents they let me go to church and they were fine
Okay.
with that. But it was definitely like their questions were asked of me.
Did they
even-
say stuff like, don't be a fanatic?
No, from what I remember, it was just like, I mean, a typical teenager. So it's like you act like that, but you're
Oh, hypocrite.
hypocrite.
They always call us. That's their
Yeah.
first right out of the pocket.
The conversations are better now. Like my mom's saved now.
Amen.
But I had to, which every Christian should, but I had to really, anytime I would have conversations with my parents, I had to be ready. And I would tell even our listeners, like, it's okay to not know the answer, but don't keep it that way. Because especially when you start, like, you're not going to know everything when you begin, but the thing is to learn and to get to a point to where you do know as much as you can. And that's certainly how my testimony of life has been.
So, how long was it between your salvation and your mom's?
So my mom was saved when she was very young, she says, but was just
Rededication. How about that?
rededication. And so I want to say just a couple years within the 2020, so maybe 2020, 21, 22.
Probably about a decade then.
But then I was saved at 2012.
That decade is the worst decade to live. But again,
20.
our mom had 3 boys who were Christians, and she was not. She was Islam,
Yeah.
Muslim, and that's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Because either you're terrified you're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing
Yeah.
in front of them. Oh man, a lot of our kids are going to deal with this when they go home.
Sure.
How do you explain a move of God to people that not only don't understand it, I dealt more with don't understand it. Those that are openly hostile to it, your life is far harder than mine. Because when they're hostile to it, calling you a hypocrite, you're being watched.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a unique and painful existence.
Well, that's what I tell my kids in the youth department. Like, just generally, people are going to be watching you.
Yeah.
And if we're telling you to witness to people in your school, or at home,
Yeah.
or at work, if they work at a later teenage age, like, they're watching you. Even if they don't think they're watching you, they're watching you.
Okay.
Especially if they know that you're a Christian, because they're looking to prove you wrong. But
That's it.
yeah. But
See, I didn't have that. I had a mom who just, like, she was blown away by all this. She'd never been around it. But if I had to live in a house with somebody that was openly hostile to it, meaning like they're watching you just go, huh? Oh, I would have exploded. I couldn't have handled that.
yeah. But
Was there a moment in her walk that was the reason for her rededication coming back, or was there a crisis?
so my parents got divorced
Same.
later 2010s.
Okay.
So 2018, or separated in 2018, 2019. But my mom got sick, cancer.
Oh, wow.
She survived it. But she went through a dark time in that span of time, and was just seeking an answer somewhere. So we had, like, fortune tellers coming to the house or something, and she was looking for the answer, and that's when I kind of was convicted to, well, hey, Nick, it's time to grow up and step up and speak up and start saying, like, hey, your mom's not.
So she was searching in not just wrong areas, but crazy areas.
Yeah. But that's what most people do nowadays, especially this. I feel like that's become more, like, using tarot cards and stuff like that. That's become more popular. Crystal is more popular.
Right down from our school. Literally right down the street on Division, metaphysical studio that has a guy who does past life regression, tarot cards.
But
Why that as opposed to her, say, going to church?
I don't know. I do remember when we first talked about it, there was some hurt behind it.
Okay.
And she did lose her dad, my grandfather, around that time too.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was a reason as well, but there was some pushback. But then she met who would be my stepfather, and he was a Christian guy.
Oh, good. Okay, so he
and
was the effect.
he was pouring into her along with me, and she finally got into a church and rededicated.
Same church as you?
No.
Mine either. When my mom got saved, I wonder about that. I do wonder about that. Like, why? Maybe it's that they want to do it their own way.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was the same way. My mom got saved and she would not go to our churches.
Yeah.
She was going to go do it herself, her own way.
Well, now she lives in North Carolina now.
Okay.
And
Where?
just outside of Charlotte.
Okay.
And they had just recently moved there. Her and my brother. And my brother used to come to the same church that I do.
Okay.
But he moved with her, and my stepfather. But then my dad is still an atheist. He's been a lot more open to the conversations.
Really?
Recently.
So he's more intellectual. You'd say he has good questions. Feels like nobody's answering, that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, he grew up Catholic, and he definitely was definitely more challenging my faith when I was younger. And I noticed once I started getting into like 18, 19, like it started kind of coming off less hostile and more genuinely wanting to know, genuinely curious. And when he lives out of state too, he lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But when he comes to town, like he comes to church with us, and he listens to this podcast.
Awesome.
Both my parents do, and
See, my dad, fierce intellectual,
mm-hmm.
except for Islam.
Mm.
Never asked questions about Islam.
Yeah.
Because, again, it was his dad, his grandma, his grandpa, et cetera. My mom had such a massive resentment, not just Islam, but religion in general. It's astonishing how many of our stories are parallel, or you have a similar set of tools that they deal with. You'll have one parent, like my dad, when my parents got divorced, you ever have somebody sit down with their kids and go, you know, mommy and daddy still love each other, and we want you to know it's not you. My dad literally said, it's you. We're divorcing because of you. And so you could add to that. But he had nothing to do with us. And it's hard as a kid to look up to your parents and realize they were learning on their way too. Because, again, they were our heroes. My dad was my hero.
Yeah.
And to see him as a human was just weird.
Yeah.
You know? I know we're talking far beyond whatever scope, but this is all apologetics. I just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
It is every bit of having a plan. Because I would pray, I would fast to try that my parents would get saved. I tried every form of spiritual manipulation because I figured I wasn't doing it right.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's sort of the overthinking thing.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm not fasting. Maybe I'm not praying right. Maybe I'm not praying enough. And the ultimate answer was I always put the blame on myself. Sad.
It's easy to do.
It is. But now that your mom is back with God, that's a glorious thing. And seeing my mom get fired up, my mom was very legalistic her whole life. Mom was rules. And legalistic even after she was saved. So she would say things like, you are not dressing like you're for church. And I would go, but how do you dress for church? my calls pattern? What am I doing? You know, like, are you one of the Duggars? They didn't exist back then, but you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would say she would just, it was a transition for her.
Yeah.
And for her, you put on your best. And the old school way of saying that, it was dungarees and denim skirts and culottes and whatever.
That's right.
I thank you guys for having me on.
Seriously.
I literally live for this stuff. And have a tendency to ramble, so.
Oh, my silence has not been boredom; it has been engaging. I love listening to this stuff.
Bless you.
My YouTube and podcasts are filled with this kind of stuff. So
I'll tell you what, Dr. Caner, you know, after the second, I think it was the second session, Tuesday morning.
Oh.
I went to Nick and I was like, we got to have him on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I mean, when I say that we emphasize apologetics, a defense for your faith, heavily. I mean, it's the spine of what we do on Thinking Well.
Okay, do you know who Anthony Flew is then? Have you heard that?
Oh, I can't say that I have.
I
no.
hope you can get the book for free somewhere.
Okay.
You know, download a PDF or something.
Sure.
But just the idea of this guy who is the head of the American Atheist Union, the man who signed Humanist Manifesto 3.
Yeah.
With, the other guys who signed that, heroes to the atheist world.
Yeah.
Dawkins professor, the guy who taught him, Al Gore's dad, these massive people.
Yeah.
And here he comes and says, we are being illogical. That is a profundity. That is massive. And for Dawkins to say, Dawkins, it's only been since the beginning of the summer where Dawkins said, yes, he had to be a literal person. Because how many times they'll say, Jesus didn't live.
Yeah.
Actually, I can rebuild you his entire life just by the people that hated him.
Right.
The writings of the Greeks and the philosophers and the politicians, Pliny the Younger and all that.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's weird.
We had a podcast episode about it recently.
I'm telling you, it's interesting watching the number of atheists. It is the most dying movement because again, it number one doesn't have answers, and number two, it can't sustain the weight.
I always say, I mean, I'm a kind of in that camp that doesn't believe that a real atheist exists.
Okay, because they don't have the knowledge. A true atheist would be somebody who doesn't know that there's a God.
Right. Well, I think atheists, they confuse themselves. They're actually agnostic.
Yeah.
They don't know, but they don't know they don't know.
How about this? I use the argument about people groups. There's never been one.
Sure.
Never been a people group ever discovered that didn't worship something other than themselves.
Agreed.
Opposite and separate from that.
Yeah.
And I use heathen publications for that. I use National Geographic. Look up, go to Curiosity Stream. As we discover these new people groups, we discover many of them know war, because war is part of fallen nature.
Right.
Many of them have the means of defense, usually they're hunter-gatherers in one way or another, but they worship something.
Yep.
Totem pole, wind, or spirit.
That's right.
And so, in fact, there's no real atheists.
I'm in that camp for sure. And it's definitely a dying movement. Yep. I mean, it's just...
At one point, Geisler said atheism was 60% of university faculty.
Sure.
And now we're down to an undedicated agnosticism. Because if you're going to get hired in a state university or school, if you're going to move up the ladder, doubt everything.
Yeah.
Which means you have to doubt your doubt.
Sure.
Which means you have to say, well, I don't know if I'm not a real atheist. I think something's out there. And they carry the crystal and the dream catcher and use the essential oils or whatever.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Caner, thank you for your time this afternoon. I know you got a busy week, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your
I love it.
schedule.
And what's funny is because I'm an older guy, my son does my social media.
There you go.
And I would love to understand how to have a podcast, but I wouldn't know the first step.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do anything. He taught me how to do Venmo just so I could send him money. And I feel like there's a ghost doing it or something. I don't know how the phone stuff works. So.
Well, you're in Willow Park.
I am.
So we're right down the road. Yeah, we're right down the road.
So.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But you're not up 820. You guys are
the Loop. Yeah, 820, like White Settlement up towards Lake Worth, Saginaw area. Yeah.
Saginaw.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I live in y'all same area,
yeah.
And I moved out there even though I was teaching in Arlington. That's a 40-mile drive.
Yeah.
But it used to be so quiet, and nobody lived out there, and I enjoy the country life. Don't understand it, Never been to an FCA or FFA in my life. Never, grown anything. But I like it because at midnight, that's when I'm working.
Yeah.
There's a silence that I embrace. So
Absolutely.
thank you guys for having me on, man.
No, of course. Thanks for taking the time. Well, Nick, tell them where to find us.
You can find us on Hammer and Quill Publications on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, as well as our Lake Worth Baptist Church Facebook, Instagram, YouTube page. See all of our content there. If you want to reach out to us, email us at podcast@lakeworthbaptist.org. And that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for sticking in there with us today. And we'll be back next week with another installment of Thinking Well. Be safe. Bye-bye.